coming off, basically a tragedy and, knocking out Jake Paul. He bounces back and survives a disastrous round where he was floored twice, and it looked like he was about to have a Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas moment in which he got his scruples together, he put it back together, he got his legs back, and he KO'd Christian Pringas in the second round, and he all but secured a November showdown, probably at Wembley Stadium, with Tyson Fury, who didn't look too good himself as he struggled against a 46-year-old fighter. So now you could call this the battle of the, I ain't gonna go as far to say has-beens, but you know, um, past their primes. I was like, I do not want AJ to go out this way. I had my issues with AJ for ducking Wilder for years, but I still mess with AJ. And I was just like, he can't go out like this, but he got it together. Um, he got it together and he basically, knocked Pringus out in the second round. But I was like, what the hell am I watching? I just think I'm just gonna be honest with you. I think Anthony Joshua should fight. I think he should fight Tyson Fury, fight Wilder, and call it a career. I don't. And Anthony Joshua is holding a kid. I guess that's his son. Hold on, you guys. Let me see what he's saying. I'll be right back. He's saying he will be ready for Tyson Fury. Listen, I'm going for AJ against Tyson Fury for obvious reasons. I shouldn't even have to say why I'm rooting for AJ. I'm not going against the grain. And we all know that Tyson Fury has cheated and he's been caught cheating. I see Anthony Joshua holding a child. I'm gonna assume that's his son. So good for him. But that was not a good look. Wait a minute, you guys. I'll be right back. So, Anthony Joshua is doing his post fight interview. He basically saying that Tyson Fury is set in stone. But to watch that first round, I was like, what the hell? And I'm gonna tell you right now, I know it's a lot of people that don't like Anthony Joshua because the situation with Wilder, and but man, I would have been like, oh my God, what did I just witness? I'm talking about if Anthony Joshua would have lost a fight like this, he would have had to retire. So they asking him right now, is Tyson Fury official? But let's see what he has to say. So Eddie Hearn confirms that they've already signed to fight Tyson Fury. So it looked like it's all but official. Basically, they're just gonna decide a date sometime in November. It looked like it's going down. But that was crazy. Well, we about to find out in a few. We about to find out in a few hours. We about to find out maybe. I don't know what time they're gonna do the actual ring walks, but I'll say if you in the West Coast between 8 and 9 Pacific time. So Anthony Joshua says that is gonna happen. So Errol Spence and Tim Zoo, that's very interesting. I gotta keep it 100. I don't like the idea that there was no random drug testing for this fight, because anything could happen. You know how I feel about that. I keep the same energy with everybody. I'm not saying that neither one of these dudes are on the juice, but for everybody that's involved, you just want that security that both fighters are going to be on the up and up. That's just how I feel. So it appears that Tyson Fury isn't there, but Eddie Hearn, as I said before, confirmed that Tyson Fury, unless something dramatic happens, is next for Anthony Joshua. So it could be they could they could headline this fight as long in the tooth, because it appears that both of these fighters appear to be long in the tooth. Listen, Anthony Joshua has been in wars. He's took a lot of punishment in fights. He's been floored numerous times to where you can't keep counting fights. So I mean, it's like, okay, well, I'm all but convinced. Had Anthony Joshua and Wilder fought back in 2019, when they should have fought 2019, or when both of them were undefeated, when Wilder had one of the belts and Joshua had three of the belts, they could have signed a 3-fight deal. They could have signed a 3-fight deal where one fight take place in the States, one fight take place, in the UK. They could have listen together. They could have made probably probably 200 million between them, maybe even more. It would have been big. You would have had, you would have had a brother from the states versus a brother from the UK via Nigeria. It would have been big. Everybody would have tuned in for that fight, and because of politics and BS, you know, it didn't happen. And I blame Al Heyman and Eddie Hearn, because first of all, Al Heyman should have never sent Charles Martin over there to give Anthony Joshua a third belt, because it was very easy to make a Wilder Charles Martin fight. Wilder beats Martin, he has two of the four major belts. But Anthony Joshua had three of the four belts, so basically it came down to a game of keep away. And Wilder looked at Al Heyman funny for years, because Eddie Hearn promised to make the fight. Eddie Hearn pulled a fast one with Al Heyman, where basically they had something in place where they was just gonna do this, where they was gonna do a deal where it would be pretty much either HBO, Showtime, and basically Eddie Hearn had just announced the deal with the Zone. So it's kind of like it's kind of like it's kind of like he pulled a fast one on Al Heyman, that he finessed Al Heyman, and then at the same time, Al Heyman finessed Deontay Wilder, whether you like it or not. And Deontay Wilder and Al Heyman's relationship was never the same. And then the fight ended up not ever getting made. Wilder, he goes on to lose to Tyson Fury. Anthony Joshua gets put in an upset match versus Andy Ruiz, and then history and destiny is all set. So so pretty much everybody got screwed in the process. Well, this is one of them things where Al Heyman got outsmarted. Usually Al Heyman outsmarts everybody and finesses everybody. Well, Al Heyman got outsmarted by Eddie Hearn, and to this day, him and Deontay Wilder's relationship was never the same because he shouldn't have trusted Eddie Hearn. And that is the one screw up that I'm always remember. Al Heyman screwed up big time, and he screwed Deontay Wilder out of millions of dollars and a chance to become undisputed, because he should have never trusted the word of Eddie Hearn. He should have had it put in writing. And Al Heyman knows better than anybody, you can't trust a verbal commitment. Everybody knows that. If you don't have it in writing, and then to top it off, he got into it with Lou DiBella. He cut off Lou DiBella because Lou DiBella basically, now keep in mind, another reason why Al Heyman and Deontay Wilder got into it is because Al Heyman interfered, and, he interfered with Lou DiBella trying to basically make the fight behind Al Heyman's back, where he basically was going to try to take Deontay Wilder over to the zone. So I guess Lou DiBella was going to possibly try to second party or co-promote the fight. Al Heyman got mad, and he basically stopped doing business with Lou DiBella. This is documented too. See, we don't want to have these conversations. So Al Heyman, he was pissed off at Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder had already been pissed off at Al Heyman. Like I said, their relationship had been strained for years. Then you heard that Deontay Wilder didn't get paid for the Robert Helenius fight. See, I'm just stating the facts. Shit, tens of millions. You might could say maybe possibly 100 million. Listen, they could have easily did a trilogy. They could have did a trilogy. I'm talking about them possibly making $200 to $300 million combined. Remember, Anthony Joshua asked for $50 million. Apparently, Deontay Wilder had found somebody that was going to invest in the fight, and basically it fell apart. As I said before, this is when Eddie Hearn, they got the deal from the zone. So basically, Eddie Hearn was trying to do what Zuffa is attempting to do right now. As you see, it didn't necessarily work out, but I'm just telling you guys, see, I remember all this stuff. So if you wonder why Deontay Wilder and Al Heyman's relationship was strained, because of those two incidents. So it's a lot of stuff that Al Heyman did that a lot of fighters, and keep in mind, Al Heyman make you sign an NDA where you can't really say anything bad about him. That's fact. Yeah. Hundreds. All three of those fights would have did big numbers on pay-per-view. You talking about Wilder and Joshua, had that fight happen in 2019 for Undisputed, I guarantee you that fight would have did probably around at least a million point whatever pay-per-views in the States and overseas. It would have been a very successful fight because of Anthony Joshua's popularity and then Deontay Wilder's popularity, as because many of us believe that fight wouldn't have went the distance. Either AJ would have knocked Wilder out or Wilder would have knocked AJ out. And probably Wilder would have been the favorite. I would have probably picked Wilder to catch AJ with something just midway through the fight. It would have been tough. I think Wilder would have got caught a couple of times, but I think Wilder would have landed that signature right hand, and I think he would have flatlined Joshua. But at least we would have been able to get a second fight, and I would have been up for it. But now you look X amount of years later, Anthony Joshua isn't what he once was. Of course, Deontay Wilder, Deontay Wilder isn't what he once was. So Tyson Fury is looking worse and worse every fight. So hopefully Anthony Joshua, if he gets past Tyson Fury, he fights Wilder and they both just call it a career. I think that's the fight that Wilder's sticking around for. I think after he fights Anthony Joshua, I just think he just wants to say that he got in the ring with Anthony Joshua. It's just like Amir Khan and Kell Brook. People were clamoring for that fight to happen. It went like 4 years past this, it's hiatus when it wouldn't have been the best time to make the fight. It eventually happened, but it didn't have that that it could have had it happened a few years ago. For whatever reason, it didn't happen then. To make things worse, Amir Khan tested positive for PEDs, and we haven't seen Amir Khan since. And it kind of makes you wonder. and the sad part about it is Amir Khan still got stopped in that fight. I mean, DOG, you preach it to the choir, man. You preach it to the choir. I'm just telling you, the fight would have. That's what I'm saying. We could have got a trilogy. Y'all know the brothers would have showed up for that fight. Y'all know we would have showed up for that fight. You know we would have watched that fight. It would have had so much interest and curiosity seeing, a black fighter from the UK versus a black fighter from the state. People would have tuned in. That would have been old school, classic matchups like, George Foreman versus Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali versus Foreman, Frazier, it could have been George Foreman versus what's his name? Lonnie Lyles. It could have been that fight. Could have been it could have been Larry Holmes versus Ernie Shavers. But as the saying goes, we'll never know now. And just imagine if Wilder wins that first fight. He single-handedly, reignites the heavyweight division in the States. Because at first, the heavyweight division was the cream of the crop. 60s, 70s, 80s. And then, when Sugar Ray Leonard came about, the Haglers and Duran, as they popularity started to arise, you started to see people pay more attention to the smaller weight classes. But heavyweights was the cream de la cream. That's what people, lived for, the heavyweight matchup. Even going as far back, if you really want to go as far back as Jack Johnson to eventually Joe Louis, and then of course Cassius Clay, who eventually became Muhammad Ali, those type of dudes. Heavyweights was the cream of the crop. And I think had Wilder, and Joshua happened at his peak, man, I'm telling you, man, the endless possibilities. And Al Heyman and Eddie Hearn screwed it up. Whoever you want to point the finger at, they screwed up destiny. Somebody got to just tell the truth about this. Might as well be me. Hey, I'll tell Eddie Hearn to his face. And all we've been getting for the last what? All we've been getting for the last pretty much 8 years, excuse after excuse, finger pointing. This should have happened. That should have happened. But listen, Wilder had investors at the time. Anthony Joshua said, "Hey, I want $50 million to fight Wilder." Well, Wilder found an investor. Remember, he said, "Hey, pick up your phone." Then all of a sudden, Eddie Hearn abruptly announces the deal with the C. I remember this. I remember this. But that's what happened, you guys. And you can debate with any other person about this because this is factual information. You can go do all the research yourself. Because keep in mind, Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko, that was televised via both HBO, Showtime. Showtime broadcasted first, and then you saw it later on HBO. That was the last fight that I think Eddie Hearn put on um, premium cable, not premium pay-per-view, but we got to see that fight for free. If you had an HBO subscription or a Showtime subscription, you watched the fight for free. And then right after that fight, that's when the DAZN deal came. Because keep in mind, Klitschko was a HBO fighter. Joshua was coming on Showtime. So just telling y'all. Yeah, he was that secret investor that Terrence Crawford was talking about. Al Heyman interfered with that fight happening for a while. Al Heyman really didn't want that fight to happen. Al Heyman really didn't want Spence versus Crawford to happen. Al Heyman threw monkey wrenches in that fight from basically trying to lowball Terrence Crawford. Whether these Errol Spence apologists, the reason why Al Heyman and and I'm gonna tell you something, Errol Spence made that fight against Al Heyman's wishes because Al Heyman really didn't want that fight for Spence. Basically, Spence fans need to understand this, and I'm not attacking Errol Spence. The plan was for him. Um, his plan was for him to fight like Keith Thurman, but Keith Thurman played games. Keith Thurman kind of like priced himself out. Keith Thurman kept getting hurt, and then Errol Spence was going to have one or two fights at either 154, 160, and then he was supposed to fight Canelo. But the thing is, with Errol Spence, he made that fight because basically people were questioning Errol Spence's heart and questioning him about the situation. And basically, he just went and made the fight. And Al Heyman just decided to let the fight happen. Well, one thing about Al Heyman that y'all need to understand, Al Heyman hold grudges. If you go against Al Heyman, you will get in his doghouse. And look at what's going on. Look at what's going on with Steve Fulton. Steve Fulton has not been the same since that anyway fight. He's missed weight quite a few times. He just hadn't looked the same. When you look at it now, and I'm gonna speak on that. I'm gonna speak on that later on. But Steve Fulton is just like I really think that he's going through some emotional stuff, and he need to not fight for a while if he is just not mentally there because he can end up getting seriously hurt. He just ain't been the same since that anyway fight, and we need to tell the truth. Well, yeah, that was Hulk. That was the plan. That was the plan. That was the plan that Al Heyman had in store for Errol Spence. And now, whether Errol Spence would have beat Canelo, we'll never know. Because Al had a good relationship with Canelo. But that was the plan, and then it fell through. Um, you know, against Al Heyman's better judgment. or against Al Haymon's wishes, Errol Spence went and made the Terrence Crawford fight. Kudos to him. Kudos to him. I'm gonna tell you guys something, and if I'm telling you, Al Heyman do not like for you to go against him. He will shelf you, or he might put you in a position where you, well, we about to find out where Errol Spence is as a fighter. And what time is it right now? What time is it, y'all? It's about what time is it? About 4 o'clock, 4:30. So we about to find out in a few short hours. Because keep in mind, Keith Thurman fought Manny Pacquiao, and Keith Thurman said he didn't get no reports and he didn't hear about, and he said that there might have not been no testing for the Pacquiao fight. Keith Thurman got in Al Heyman's doghouse because he kept pricing himself out for the Errol Spence fight. And then, as you can see, Keith Thurman went on to have some questionable performances. Then you seen what happened with the Fondor fight. So I'm just telling you, there's a pattern. So yeah, we about to find out. We about to find out very shortly. But anyway, about to check out you guys, about to go get something to eat. Y'all know to tune in later on. Y'all know to tap in here for the aftermath of Spence versus Tszyu. And y'all do know it's like the next day in Australia, right? It's like Australia is like some parts of Australia is like a 20-hour time difference or something. This is like it's already Sunday out there. But tap in. Definitely gonna have the post-fight commentary. Stay tuned.